All right, now we are going to have some fun. So, the idea of your brand having an enemy may not feel very logical, but bear with me. I want you to think of your brand as a character in a story. And when you think objectively about your favorite movies, TV shows, and the main character that's in that story, think about all of the challenges, the people that are standing in their way, maybe the companies or the governments that are standing in their way of accomplishing whatever their goal is. That is required for a good story. If a character got everything that they wanted and then the story ended, we wouldn't be interested in the story because that's not how storytelling works. So, as you're building your brand, think of it as a character in your brand story. Now, here are the villains. And again, this may not be a specific person. It may be a type of person that you call out that you dislike. It might be a idea that stands in the way or a belief system that stands in the way of you realizing your goals. And these are extremely effective for not only engaging your ideal clients and customers in stories, so we're creating interesting stories that they want to hear, but it also helps them root for you. They want you to succeed. They want you to conquer your dragon, whatever that is. So things like frivolous people, illogical ideas or people really, really bother you. False prophets, especially people in like the magician archetype who are teaching things that are completely illogical or wrong. People or ideas that are overly dramatic or exaggerated. Things that are a little bit too sentimental, so following your heart at the expense of everything else. People not understanding why you do something a certain way can be a challenge for you. Lies, deception, miscommunication, and inaccuracies are a huge roadblock to you realizing your goal of sharing and knowing the truth. Not being able to communicate what you know for some reason, whether you don't have the resources or the language. Hello, we're listening to the brand fluency training that you invested in so that you can speak the emotional language of your brand clients. So hopefully I'm helping you overcome that specific challenge, but you may have other challenges with being able to communicate what you know and what your value is. The idea of like paranoia and conspiracy theories, and then the intentionally uninformed people who are willfully ignorant can be a brand villain. So these brand villains are going to show up in the stories that you tell. We're going to talk more about the story prompts that are specific to your brand in a later video. They can also show up in stories that you tell, and then stories are going to show up in many, many different places. So everywhere from your email marketing to your homepage, to your about page, to if you are interviewed on behalf of your brand. These are all great places to rally your ideal client and customer on your side because you're going to tell them what you're up against. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So by having a common enemy that you are trying to overcome, again, whether that's an idea or a type of a person or whatever, you're going to form an unbreakable bond with the people that you are trying to associate with. Okay, so every strength has a shadow side, right? So if somebody is really strong, they may have a hard time appearing very relatable and vulnerable. If somebody is, very creative, they might be really messy. So these are your weaknesses. These are the things that as the sage archetype you are most susceptible to. However, you don't have to get rid of them because we understand and we actually appreciate the fact that brands are open and they have the ability to admit what their weaknesses are because it makes you believable. Nobody's perfect. We understand that. So by bringing these to the surface and acknowledging your challenges with these personal pitfalls of yours can be a really effective way to build that relationship with your ideal client. However, you just need to be aware of them and know what your particular, what's the word? Like your particular brand of self-sabotage is taking over, and be mindful that it doesn't hurt your business and your brand in a big way. So the idea that truth is more important than relationships can harm you, especially if those people feel like you don't care about them. Getting into a cycle of inaction from constant learning and constant gathering of information can be a challenge or a pitfall of yours that I personally am afflicted with. So you might feel the same. Missing the big picture by looking at all of the details, all of the, it can be really frustrating as a sage to have multiple different experts that are all preaching their version of the truth, and then they contradict each other. So that can be really challenging for us to navigate. It can be difficult for a sage to relax or get out of your head. We're always thinking. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert sage, you have a very active mind. Sometimes we have a lack of empathy in understanding why people act irrationally, especially. Like, really? Which can make us hard to relate with some people sometimes. Sometimes it's hard for us to take really big action because we want to make sure that we're doing things the right way, the educated way, the proven way. And that can stop us from getting into action. Being in touch with our own feelings can be hard in some cases. Social situations can be hard, again, in some situations, because there's not really a guidebook for building relationships in effective ways. Actually, there are guidebooks, and they were probably written by sages, or they're marketed towards sages, because sometimes that doesn't come naturally to us. And passiveness can also be a problem as well. If we, again, are getting in a place where we're in a rut, we're spinning our wheels, we're not taking action because we're trying to decide what to do. Okay, on the other side, the what to avoid list, these are the things that you shouldn't do at any cost. So these are so oppositional, so opposite to what you believe at the core of your brand archetype that it would have massive damage in the value of your brand and in people's understanding of you. So make sure that you avoid these at all costs. So relying too much on your own opinion or gut feeling to inform your decisions, content, services, and products can be damaging for you. If only because you're trying to lead by example. So if you're telling people that finding the truth, the objective truth, is incredibly important, but you don't listen to the objective truth yourself, that would be contradictory. Spreading inaccurate or biased information, or not taking, and especially like not taking steps to correct it if you realize that you've done that, can be extremely, extremely harmful for your brand. I mean, think about a newspaper. We trust them to tell us the truth, and when they post inaccuracies, they actually have corrections in their stories to make sure that we understand what the objective truth is. Using overly flowery or affectionate language is going to send mixed signals about your brand. It's not to say that you can't be, if you are a woman or a man, you can't be super feminine and smart, because I think you can. But at the same time, by only speaking from your emotions or from your gut and leading people to believe that's where your decision making is coming from, again, it contradicts like the data, facts, truth part of your archetype. Focus too much on entertainment at the expense of education and value is contradictory to your brand. It doesn't really make sense for you to send your ideal clients and customers useless cat videos constantly. That would be very off-brand for you. Again, refusal to admit when you're wrong or mistaken. Style without substance. Whatever your industry's equivalent of the dumb blonde is what to stay away from. And then working without a plan. For similar reasons, we want to lead by example. It makes sense for us to walk our talk. So these are ways that you can avoid contradicting yourself. So spend some time in reflection. Write your own personal not to-do list. of things that are either on the pitfalls or what to avoid that you may be susceptible to make sure that you keep your brand concise, clear, and consistent.